Hello, lovely people of the internet. 'Tis I, Savage Minnow, LMNOP. This week I am here by myself because the Holy Spackle has been dealing with some medical stuff. So we are wishing her well, sending her all of the healing vibes, hoping that she feels better as soon as possible. And hopefully she'll be back next week. But we don't know for sure because she's got stuff going on. So if she's not back next week, it's not like an emergency or anything. It's just she's got stuff going on. So, yeah, I did wanna do something a little bit different this week just because it's kind of a bonus episode, and I don't really wanna go on to the next thing in the orange papers without her. And this morning, I actually happened to come across this video that I'm gonna play for you today. Now, I haven't seen it all. As I said, she posted this just earlier today, and this is a channel that I recently discovered right after I posted last week's video. Think it was, like, the next morning, I came across this channel with this woman who is neurodivergent, who she went through specifically AA, and she was, like, a diehard member, and like, bless her, like, the way that she reacted to coming out of the 12 steps, out of specifically AA, is, like, so graceful, and I think I couldn't do it. But the way that she is able to you'll hear some a little bit in this that she has talked about that she does not regret her time in AA, that for her, it was something that worked. For her, it got her off of alcohol. It was brought her good things in life. But then one day and for her, it happened during the pandemic, during shutdown. There was basically people had to, like, go to meeting on Zoom, although I think that she said that she was, like, in Bali or something, and they didn't have to go into lockdown. But she said one day, just, like, all the walls came down, and, she just realized, "Hey, this is all BS. This is all just a bunch of mind control." And, that's not exactly how it happened for me. Actually, it happened quite differently for me in that I first realized that this was not a thing that was helping me in my life, and at that point started to distance myself from it. Now, I was like an NA member, but I mostly went to AA meetings, and the way that they are set up here is, like, that's not actually an issue. From what I understand in other places that they're, like, very, like, strictly verboten, they're, like, very, very separate. For me, I just got used to saying, like, "My name is Elle, I'm an alcoholic addict." Um, like, never really had that much issues with either one now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I a lot of times had to justify not having had a past with drinking when I was in AA meetings, but also in a lot of ways, I felt like those meetings sort of fit me a little bit better because some of the NA meetings were a little bit, um, just didn't feel like a safe place. I don't know how else to explain it. It just didn't feel like a safe place to be. And the AA meetings, while not a safe place, did not necessarily feel all that much safer. Um, but they did in some ways. Also, it was kind of a thing with my schedule as well. So, let me see. I did want to try. Yes. Okay. Cool. I've got it queued up here. So this video, as you can see, it's very long. I think it's over 2.5 hours long. I might play it at 1.5 speed, depending on. I'm somebody who watches like everything at double speed. So I don't know if you guys are opposed to that. Oh, maybe I'll try 1.25 speed because that's usually I feel like most people can. Is this speed okay with everyone? This feels really, really slow to me. There's no audio on the video or no audio on me? I'll try and share it again. Let's see. I did share the sound and I double checked it. Okay. Let me try and do it again. And I'll just do a new screen share. Again, audio is checked. There we go. Now, I appreciate you letting me know. I'm coming through loud and clear. Okay, so let me know if this is coming through. Now, my understanding is, and again, I just watched some of this briefly earlier this morning, so I might have gotten some of it wrong, but he is an NA member who was there. I think he was, like, only in NA for, like, a year, but it, like, really messed with him. And he's been out for, like, 10 years. But again, he talks about how NA is all built on the AA, Bill Wilson, and all of his shit, and, I am again, I said, like, NA, but, like, I have, like, the, um, Bill Wilson's Message, Visual History of Alcoholics Anonymous, As Bill Sees It, but I also have, like, some of my NA books and stuff too that I found in storage. This one's the 12 and 12. This is well, this is actually the 12 and 12 for Al-Anon, but, I actually realized I don't have a lot of the books that I thought that I had because I was somebody who I would just give them away. So, like, I had, like, the blue version of the big book and, like, the NA, like, basically the big book version, and I think I probably just gave them to somebody at some point. "Hey, Maya, good to see you." Because like Andrew said, most people come into this when they're, like, at a low, like, they're going through some shit in life, and then they're expected to, like, fork over, like, 20, $30 in books just to start out with, and then more and more and more and more. So, as you can see, like, the books can add up pretty quickly, and these are just like, most of these are, like, optional books. Again, this is, like, the As Bill Sees It and, like, the visual history, and this is a special edition of the Alcoholics Anonymous. You won't see this one at meetings, mostly because they, like, lost their copyright for it, so it's actually a different publisher. But, there's also so originally, I think it was, like, a yellow version of actually, this probably shows it. Here we go. So this is what the first version of the big book looked like, and that was 19 okay, so he finished it in 1939. I was thinking it was 1940s, but it must have been like, maybe it wasn't published until 1940s. But it's like that red and yellow version. And then my version was the blue one, which is the one that you'll see a lot more now. Um, this one doesn't show there it does show some of the, like, other languages, though. It's just 'cause it's spread all over the world. And this used to be something that I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." Um, Also, I think this book is interesting that it came out after I'm getting this is a side tangent here, but, this is the Pass It On, which I know I have the dust jacket here somewhere, but this is, like, written like a memoir, and it does have some pictures, like, I know there's, like, Baby Bill and his parents, like, this is the house he grew up in, and there's Baby Bill. Little Bill Wilson. Um, but this one reads more like a memoir, and some of it is, like, absolutely, like, unnecessary, so fucking dry, and so I think what happened was, like, not a lot of people read this one. And then they made this one, which is like the pocket, like almost like a coffee table book version. But yeah. Yes. So yes, this was started like I think actually the Oxford group, which is the original group, was started during Prohibition. And I remember there was a thing about so Dr. Bob was one of the original drunks in the Oxford group. And him and Bill Wilson met there. And I think Dr. Bob, he had this philosophy of that, like, because prohibition was coming up, this was, like, years before, that, like, it wasn't he couldn't be that bad because, like, prohibition was coming, so, like, he couldn't turn into a lush. and therefore he, like, could like, turn himself into a drunk. This was his own story, by the way. And then because he was such an alcoholic, then he couldn't get better from it. Also, during Prohibition, like, they still could have alcohol if it was, like, prescribed by a doctor, and, so, like, there was, like, ways to get alcohol. It wasn't obviously, there were, bootleggers and stuff as well, but, um, yeah, this absolutely started during Prohibition, and it's been around since then and gone through many, many different iterations and is in many, many countries now, and, like I said, AA and NA were specifically the ones that I was involved with, but there's also, Overeaters Anonymous, but I had let me see if I have the yeah, this is just a short list. This is not even all of them, but Alcoholics Anonymous. So Al-Anon is for friends and family members of alcoholics. So like people who don't even have a problem themselves. Their only problem is that they know somebody who's an alcoholic. They love someone who's an alcoholic. CODA is for Codependents Anonymous. GA for Gamblers Anonymous. OA for Overeaters Anonymous. EA for Emotions Anonymous. RA for Racists Anonymous. SA for Alcoholics Anonymous. And yeah, it's apparently just a, a magic pill that cures all of these people. So, yeah. Sandy says, "Hey, my neighbor claims he forgot that he left his still back where he left his still back in the day. And trust me, he lived through Prohibition. If only the holler could talk." Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of guys who did like kind of lose track of. I did not shave my head in honor of my head is not shaved. Um, Generally specific. I do need to shave my sides. I do have a mohawk, but it's getting kind of shaggy. I have a very shaggy mohawk. But yes, that's how old Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe, was started in the 40s under that name. But again, Oxford group goes back before that. And yeah, a lot of is this I think the big book? This is well, I can look at this later because we've got stuff to react to. Maya says lurking while driving. Oh well, thank you, Maya. Thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate having you here. So we will go ahead and get to this. Let me know if we're still having audio issues, and I'll retry. Try some new stuff.
Even if that means taking your own life before you use drugs. He was like, you know what, man, I would really rather you smoke a joint and not kill yourself. And that was the crack in my brainwashing. What if
So did you guys hear that? And I think that's actually a very poignant remark that he made about his kind of crack in the brainwashing. I sure hope that Maya is using talk to text or text to talk. Talk to text. Yeah, we talk to text while she's driving. Yes, you can hear the video this time. Awesome. But yeah, that is so in Narcotics Anonymous, like that's one of the things that we're like, you're like never, no matter what, never use again. And there is sort of this like all or nothing type thing. Like if you ever use again, like you may as well like be shooting up heroin if you even so much as like drink half a beer or something. And it's very frustrating. But yes, well, I think he talks about that relatively early on, if I remember correctly. So we'll probably get to that tonight.
if it's the
Let me
thing
know
that
if
they're
this is too
saying is
fast.
the solution is causing me all of this pain? Leaving the rooms and starting the deprogramming journey was the absolute hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. I believed with every fabric of my being that this was true. And now I don't. It's a total.
That's also like one of the weird things about it. I've heard that from multiple people that when we decided to quit, like quitting alcohol was like difficult for a lot of people. Quitting like different substances. I was in drug court for 14 months where I couldn't do anything. Probably weed was the most difficult for me, apart from like caffeine, but I didn't like quit caffeine then. But because Alcoholics Anonymous and NA doesn't recognize that as a drug, right? But quitting all of those, yes, there was varying levels of difficulty. The most difficult one to quit was the 12 steps. Like, how is that? Like, it's a little bit of a mind fuck, right?
Like existential crisis mindfuck. Like I felt this
I forgot that
pain
he
and
said that.
loneliness from leaving the rooms. What I like to call 12-step programs is the glass ceiling society. I thought that I was living my life to the fullest while I was in it. And I'm like, motherfucker, I got a life beyond my wildest dreams because I got that shit out of my fucking head.
Hello and welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten. Super excited you are here today for this leaving AA conversation. We have John in the house today. What's up?
Hey, what's up?
So she's the one that I was telling you about that I found her last week. I have like binged several of her podcasts since then. Like she's great. Her link is down in the description. Go follow her. He also recently started a YouTube channel about leaving recovery. And I think I also have that one linked down in the description. So just heads up. Those are both linked down there. And yeah.
Everybody.
I hear you may have just started a YouTube channel this month. Where can people find you if they want to come?
Rear ends. I am a big believer that we can't, despite being told that we have to be in, forever,
You already know
forever,
Forevery.
forever, that actually through my own.
So this is a good point that they make. And I'm sorry for pausing it so much, but like, this is like, there's so many things just like right at the start that are such good points that I really want to touch on. The concept of like forevery. And I think that is a Kirsten concept. I'm not sure if that's hers or she got that from somewhere else, but this concept of like that you're in recovery forever. And it's ridiculous, right? Anything else that you recover from, Spackle's recovering from a surgery. We don't know how long she's gonna take to recover, but when you break a bone, it's there's kind of a window. It may not, we don't know the exact day that it's gonna be fixed, right? But there's going to be a day when you're going to be recovered. You're not just in recovery for like forever. And so I think this is an interesting combination of forever and recovery because it's forever recovery, or as she calls it, forevery.
Experience and from experiences like yours that I've observed, we can recover and really set our preferences for ourselves of what success in this realm looks like, and then step into what I call discovery, which there's no dogma or anything behind it. It's just the process of discovering who we really are, what we want out of life. And because we're individuals and we are in fact unique, it looks different for everybody. Who would have?
And I think that is for a lot of people when we leave any type of really, I'm going to say a high control group, because I know that not everybody buys into the label of cult. But whenever you leave a high control group that has kind of made up your mind for you for the past however long, there is this sort of sense of, I don't know who I am. And maybe the person that you thought that you were before the group is what led you into a bad place where the group kind of picked you up. And that was kind of difficult for me because I remember kind of going through this, that it was trying to find my identity when I knew that the person that I was before, in the before times as a teenager, I couldn't be that person anymore. And there was just some trauma and some stuff that had happened when I was a teenager. And I started doing a lot of drugs. And just quick recap, I had my 20th birthday in a like inpatient recovery facility because at 19 I ended up getting arrested. I had weed in my dorm room, which was kind of like the least of things. I was also just like doing a bunch of drugs, but I was a kid with trauma, and this kind of concept of like, who am I coming out of that? Because I knew that the identity that I had as like a 16, 17-year-old wasn't who I really was. And that was really hard for me to just kind of find myself. Generally specific says, I asked God to heal me from the addiction of nicotine, I'm assuming from, God is faithful. God is not a man that he would lie. I thank God for answering my ask. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. I mean, I quit nicotine just by quitting. Like, I just kind of, like, found the willpower within myself. I didn't need a higher power. I didn't need to, like, be powerless over anything. In fact, um, not being powerless, I think is what really helps me to actually get off nicotine. But, to each their own. I do find that this program one of the things that really bothers me about the 12-step program is not necessarily that it is a religious program, but that it bills itself as not being a religious program and then kinda turns around and contradicts itself and becomes a religious program, and that is, a real problem for me. It's kind of a bait and switch. When I'm weak, he's strong. Well, I mean, like I said, I this isn't like a stream about religion. This is just about AA. But I'm not religious and definitely like religion was not something that like helped me to break free from this. But if that worked for you, hey, whoever is like moving on from their addictions, if they're doing it in a healthy way, it's not hurting anybody, not hurting anybody, do it. Like I'm all for it. So yeah. Exactly, you are giving your testimony, which is preaching. So, yeah, Andrea has a point. Andrea, last week you had asked about Bill Wilson and his denomination of Christianity. He was a member of, I believe it was called the Cavalry Group, which was not one that I was expecting and not a denomination that I was familiar with. But, there was a pastor that he kind of worked with and got some material from, and that was where he came about him was in the Cavalry Group. Yes, I am preaching. It's my channel. That's what I'm here for, generally specific. Absolutely. I'm I by the strict definition of the term, I am absolutely preaching. Um, but I'm preaching a message, and I'm not saying that what you're saying is against the message, I'm saying it's off message. Yeah, again, my channel, my message that I wanna stay on, that's why they're pointing it out. It's like, "Hey, like, maybe do preaching on your own channel. You got your own channel, go preach there. It's all good. I am my own God." I don't believe in a God, really. Um, I'm not sure what you mean by God, but, for the most part, no, I don't really believe in a God. And the concept of, like, being one's own God is part of the problem that I had with this program, but that was more of something that we talked about last week, and, if you wanna hear more about that, you can watch last week's episode. I do wanna go ahead and get on with this, though. Thank you, Aunt Chair.
Thought.
Totally. I love that. Obsessed. So why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of how long you were in AA or 12 step and about when did you leave?
Yeah, so I actually my
Just you don't get to make demands on my channel, okay? Like, you are in the peanut gallery, and you get to be a member of the peanut gallery, but that's all you get, okay? So, like, you don't get to make demands on my channel, and if you don't start being polite, you're gonna get booed. So, put you in timeout or shit like a child. Nobody wants that, right? We're all adults here, so let's act like it, alright?
my program of choice, so to speak, was Narcotics Anonymous. I came into
I
the
like that. It was his program of choice because that's one of the things that they ask us in Narcotics Anonymous is like, "What was your drug of choice? What was your drug of choice?" As if it fucking matters. Like, it's supposed to be like, "Oh, it's the same program for everybody," but then, like, we also really wanna talk about our drug of choice. So, it's really interesting that we, like it's like we have these our ways that we do things as addicts, and, like, we just keep doing them. But also we get fed this, like, concept of, like, you're an addict, that's your identity, you're an addict, so, like, we identify as that, and we sort of, like, feed into those things. Ugh. I'm sort of, like, realizing it as I'm talking about it now.
room. I got clean on February 6th of 2019, and I left in June of 2020, like you, during the pandemic. And so I was in there about a year and a half, and I was absolutely a true believer. I still have a drawer back there with all of my books, with all of the stuff underlined, and my, my key tags and
I don't
all
have
of
my key
that
tags
stuff.
anymore.
I really believed
I
it
have my key tags and my
with
coin.
every fabric of my being. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild how fast the indoctrination works, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think for
Absolutely.
less than 2 years. I don't know if
So
he said.
I guess where I'd like to start is kind of the background of why I got indoctrinated so quickly. It makes a lot of sense looking back.
Oh, do you need a trigger warning? He does talk about, to be fair, he does talk about this kind of pushed him to where he was, in a place where he was not wanting to continue living, and he does talk more about that, not in super detail. He just, in general, talks about the concept, and then he talks about, like, there was an attempt, but it wasn't like there's nothing graphic or anything that he talks about. But yeah, that is fair.
I
Thank you, Gia.
My parents got divorced when I was 3, and I kind of grew up bouncing from one household to the other every like other day. So it was like Monday night at mom's house, Tuesday night at dad's house, and I had a really loving mom. I really believe that like pretty much everybody, if they met her, would just love her. She was an amazing person. My dad really had an unhealthy relationship to his work and was pretty neglectful. And when he met my
Oh,
stepmom
did
when
I
I
read
was
this
5,
everybody's head?
she
Sorry if I
hated my
misread it.
mom. And because she couldn't really channel that hatred towards my mom herself, she channeled it through me, through this like innocent 5-year-old boy who like wanted to be loved. There was pretty intense psychological abuse that took place at a very young age. And kind of like you, I try to not I try to choose my identity very carefully. But one thing I really do resonate with is like
Sorry I
I'm
didn't
a
give a
highly
trigger warning
sensitive
about that. I
person. I
didn't realize
feel
that at
very
first.
deeply,
Didn't remember that.
and I would kind of consider myself to be like a high sensation seeking, highly sensitive person. So like I want to drink in the beautiful sunset and it'll like
I kind of identify with that too. I remember the first time listening to him saying that he's a highly sensitive person, but he's also like drawn to like sensation seeking. And I kind of identify with that as well. I am also a neurospicy person. And it is interesting that it's sort of like the level of experience, the level of sensation that we are drawn to seems to be different than neurotypical people. Um, when I really enjoyed skydiving, because it was like a very strong pressure against my body, like, first in one direction and then when the parachute opens in another direction, and that was just a really fun and interesting sensation. Whereas I've talked to, like, neurotypical people and they're like, "Oh gosh, like, the feeling of it really sucked. It was a really fun experience to have, but, like, it actually felt really painful and stuff." And it's like, yeah, I did get, like, not a lot of bruises, but I got some bruises and stuff. Um, but it was really I found that to be a really nice, interesting sensation. Falling, to like 300 miles per hour towards the no, I forget how fast it is. I don't maybe it's not that fast.
like make me cry, and like I'm a roller coaster enthusiast. So like I
I
love
love
like
roller
traveling the world
coaster,
riding
yeah.
roller coasters, and I loved drugs and like these things that make me like really feel. I just always have craved those types of sensations. And I think also because of that,
Same, yes, yeah.
when my stepmom began abusing me, I was at an age that I was pretty fragile in that way. And so when it all came down to like kind of grooming me to have this perception that I wasn't enough and that I wasn't deserving of love, that really stuck with me. And so then I would say following that, I had a transition from going from the second grade to the third grade and changing schools. And I went from a very small school to like a giant public school. And on the first day of school in the third grade, I was targeted and assaulted by like 2 sixth grade kids. They pushed me to the ground during lunch and they stomped on my face repetitively and like sent me to the hospital.
I think he said 3rd grade when this shit happened to him. Like, I got beat up as a kid, but it was like I was like preteens type age when it first started happening. I got like bullied when I was younger, but I never got like beat. And I can only imagine that that must really just like stick with you. That especially when he was saying that he was already having like sort of self-esteem issues before that. Like I'm surprised that he didn't like get caught up with, I don't know, something else besides 12 steps. But
Was really, really traumatic and really painful. Looking back, I have so much compassion for myself because I made a
like
childhood vow with myself that I
in
wouldn't put
crime.
myself into a social situation where something like that could happen again. And so I did my best to kind of become a chameleon and like not go out to recess or lunch and just um, avoid anything like that happening again.
I remember as again, this is when I was older. I remember one time when I switched schools, like post-secondary schools, and I had this sort of like in between like summer semester where I was going to a school that I knew that I wasn't going to be finishing out my degree. And I remember like telling myself, like, okay, your job here is to like be invisible. Like you're just like not going to be a real person. Like can like just like strip everything away that makes you a person and just be like an NPC. And like that was how like I got through that semester without drawing attention to myself, without making it, which was in itself such a difficult thing to do. But it's like these are my choices, right? And I grew up in a really, really conservative area. So being neurospicy, being queer, being just like somebody who I just outwardly can't, can't not be myself. I can for a few months. And I think that we found that like about 8 weeks, I can manage to pull it off for about 8 weeks, and then I start to go a little bit wacky. Yes, I agree. I wanna know what's happening in the homes of the kids who beat up other kids. Like, how do they think that's okay to beat up a little kid? So, I agree with that, and I think that a lot of times that they are getting beat up by not kids is the unfortunate answer to that. And, I just know from my personal experience, there was a kid that and I don't wanna, like, go it too much into somebody else's story, but my brother got beat up when he was in school, and from some backstory that basically found out that, like, the kid who beat him up had, like, a really shitty home life, and more than likely, he was probably getting beat by his parents, unfortunately. And that's, um, you know dad slaps mom, mom knocks kid around, kid kicks the dog, so on and so forth. And yeah, exactly. Exactly, Sandy. They most likely have very little power at home. Very little power. And then when they go to school, they exert the one little bit of power that they do have over this innocent person and take it to the extreme. I agree, Sandy.
And now that was the challenging the some of the challenging aspects of my childhood, but also through
I didn't see your comment earlier, GS, but yes, that's I ended up getting into those fights a lot as a kid. Some of you guys know that I talked about on this channel before that I had like I was a giant when I was a kid. Like I actually had like a condition that had like the word giganticism in it. And I stopped growing when I was 12. So and I'm 5'10". And I basically towered over everyone that I went to school with. And there were multiple times when I would like see a kid that was getting picked on, and I would step in to like kind of make things just like end things. And then I would end up getting in trouble because like that one kid who was the bully got hurt because I was bigger and stronger than he was. And he wanted to fight back. And yeah, um, it's difficult when you're a kid because it's like, what is the message that they're teaching you? Are they teaching you that you don't step in? That you don't stick up for the kid that's getting bullied? Because, like, all of the after school specials seem to say that you should, like, stick up for the kid that's getting bullied, but then at the same time, like, I'm getting in trouble for it. No, I don't play volleyball. I did, like, for a year in school because I was I was 5'10". And I think my first year of middle school, they wanted me to play volleyball. They wanted me to be a hitter, the person who spikes it over the net. I did play basketball for several years because being fucking tall is also a benefit for playing basketball. Spackle's listening in. Hi, Spackle. Please feel better soon. Sending healing vibes your way. Feel better, feel better, feel better. Okay, we'll get back to this.
The love of my mom. I had amazing experiences. She was a big time traveler. And, every year we would go on like a cool international trip. And so I don't want to paint my life as just having this like horrific childhood. I was very, very loved. And the friendships that I did make, while not a lot of them were in my school, I did have wonderful friends growing up. But this feeling
Same.
of,
I also did a lot of traveling and I had a lot of friends that were outside of school that were like from other activities. And thankfully my parents were good about putting me in activities that were outside of school. That is important. If you have kids, particularly if you have kids that have like issues socially at school, like make sure that they're in a lot of I know it seems a little bit like counterintuitive. Like they have issues socially. Why would I put them in more social things? Like because they need to be around other kids. Um,
feeling different, not belonging, but really wanting to belong. Like my heart and soul craved to be like one of the cool kids, or even if it wasn't a cool
yeah.
kid, to just fit in somewhere.
Somewhere.
And so
Anywhere.
when
Just give them a place to fit in.
fast forward, when I got to the point in my life where I had a therapist and I'd been really trying to work on this issue of not feeling good enough or not feeling worthy of love, I also was having some substance use in there, and I had been in a relationship for 11 years that actually was pretty toxic in a variety of ways. Because I hadn't done a lot of healing, I kind of had like a
No, I wonder if that person was somebody who, like, used regularly. He might talk about this. I was doing shit while I had this on earlier today. So, but for me, because my partner had engaged in substance use, like, I needed to break up with him. Which was kind of messed up. So I'm wondering about this person and this partner that he's with. Recovering, not receiving. Okay. That's you're recovering, but listening. Well, you're on drugs, so we forgive you for using the wrong word. And prescribed drugs. All right. Doctor sanctioned drugs.
love addiction to that partner, to where like
Yes.
I didn't feel like I would be okay alone or single.
Agreed,
And then she was
Sandy.
also pretty controlling. And so it was like she knew how to pull away, and then I would like freak out and do whatever I could to, get her to show love again. So that relationship kind of came to a head at a point where I was in therapy. She got very jealous of me having friends. So I was very isolated. I was using cannabis to have some semblance of like regulation. And my therapist said to me one day, she said, John, I really want to help you with this journey of like learning to love and accept yourself. But I see you come into the office like, hi, and I see you come into.
And so many therapists don't have any training on like substance use disorder, and any training that they do have just like tells them like, hey, send them to some 12-step meetings, send them to Narcotics Anonymous.
The office low, and I just don't think that I'm going to be able to do that if like you're on drugs. So how would you feel about going with me to a NA meeting? And I was like, all right.
His
Like it was like the clouds
therapist
parted, and
took
I was
him
like, you know what,
to an
you're
NA
right. Like
meeting.
you're right. I'm at a
Talk
point
about
to
lack of
where I see
boundaries.
this really clearly, and I want to try to do something about it. And so I went with my therapist to like an NA meeting, and I think that right away.
Now, I had a therapist that was, like, sanctioned by it was my therapist was a recovery therapist that worked at a facility that, like, hosted 12-step meetings. So, like, it was weird that, like, the way that it was set up because they couldn't technically, sponsor the 12-step meetings because, like, NA is supposed to be, like, its own separate entity. So then they had like this like space that they would basically like let them use that was like kind of like how we would do like church basement kind of thing. And it was like all and like all of the therapists would like be so they would have like group therapy would be in the same room as it would be like there's an NA meeting in an hour. So like just hang out for an hour and then the difference was that the therapist wasn't there and then there would be people who like weren't getting like therapy and treatment in the facility that would like also. But yeah, it was like I had individual therapy and group therapy at the same facility, and then the room that I had group therapy in, there was another NA meeting there that, like, pretty much everybody was expected to be in. I pretty quickly stopped going to that NA meeting because it was, that one was specifically, like, a women's NA meeting, if I remember correctly. There's something about it that was, like it was just really, like, catty and, like, very, like, people were, like, talking behind your back and would, make, um, make judgments about you, and it was just, like, kinda that kinda shit that I really, really didn't like, but it was one of the first ones that was suggested to me, and I was just like, "No, like, I'm gonna go to different meetings." Um, I think Aunt Jer's on drugs. Do you need a meeting? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Also, I wanna be clear for anybody who like, if drugs are a problem in your life, like, there are links in the description. Like, I do not discourage anybody from getting off of drugs. If, like, drugs are a problem in your life, please get off drugs. If alcohol is a problem in your life, please get off alcohol. Like, links in the description. Um, most of these programs have, like, way better odds than any type of 12-step program. Like, just don't let this organization steal your life from you, okay? But yeah, go into recovery. Like, if you want to get off drugs or alcohol, please recover from that and, like, and recover from that in a period of time where at the end point, you will have been recovered, okay? Don't live the rest of your life in forevery, as she calls it. I like the forevery. I'm stealing it.
I think that I have this sort of gift of speaking from the heart and with authenticity and vulnerability. And I think that people
Also, to be clear, I do still smoke weed. I don't do other shit just because, like, I don't want to anymore. And that was also a realization, like, part of the realization when I, like, got out of NA was, like, I don't want to. Which, again, they told me that my other options were jails, institutions, and death. And, turns out that, like, they missed the option of, like, just being kind of a pothead.
in the rooms could sense that. And so after about my first, second, or third meeting, I mean, right from the get-go, I identified as, an addict. And so I had people after the meeting coming and giving me the slip of paper with the phone numbers and, telling me they love
Give you
me
your number.
immediately. And
It's weird when they, like, give you their number and then, like, it'll, like, maybe have their first name on it, or sometimes it won't even have their name, and it's like, "I don't remember your name from the meeting," or sometimes it'll be, like, the number is, like, scribbled, so you, like, can't even, like, really necessarily read it. Also, for me, I started in 2006, and, we didn't have, like, smartphones. So, it was a little bit different for me because we didn't have like, I'm sure I could text, but for the most part, like, especially I live out in the sticks, we didn't really text, so it was mostly, like, phone calls, voicemail, like, that kinda thing. But we did exchange numbers, and we had, like, a house phone that, like, people would, like, ask for my number, and I would give them, like, my house phone that was, like, my recovery house that I lived in. Yeah.
as long as we share the same identity, I love you. My first sponsor approached me after like the third meeting and was like, "Do you have a sponsor?" I'm like, "No." "Oh, I'll be your sponsor." And so it goes. But that feeling of
Yeah,
that
you're
deep
also strongly
seated
encouraged to have a
childhood
sponsor.
feeling of like, I want to belong.
It's like, what are the 5 things? It's like, work the steps, get a sponsor go to meetings, work the steps, get a sponsor, stay clean, and do, like, service work. Spread the word, you know?
Felt like initially it was finally
Kind of a
met.
problem.
It gave me a context at the time to that made sense in terms of my
Facilitate.
substance use. and made sense in that, like, oh, that's why I am the way that I am. That's why I'm an addict. And so yeah, that was kind of how that journey began, and why right from the get-go, like, I just got so indoctrinated, because I didn't come into it from like your story, seeing it at first as being a religious cult, and then over time getting it.
I appreciate your comment, generally specific, how much fellowshipping is to provide a sense of purpose, and I do think that that is probably very much the case for a lot of the meetings, and a lot of it. There is I noticed a tendency in meetings around here for people to stay up to an hour, 2 hours after the meeting to, like, help do shit, and there's maybe, like, 45 minutes worth of shit to, like, help do, like, probably less than, like, pick up the chairs, sweep the floor, but, like, pretty quickly, there's not gonna be that much to do, but it was, some of the groups, it was very much sort of, like, expected. Like, if I left before somebody had the broom out, like, sweeping the floor, it was considered, like, rude and, like, um, especially if I didn't, like, put, a ton of money in the plate. There were people who, like, put a ton of money into the hat when they passed it, um, and I think those people a lot of times would skedaddle without a whole lot of shame. But yeah, I think that some of it was for those people to have that sense of purpose that, like, okay, a lot of them were, like, out of work, or that they'd been, their family wasn't talking to them, or that sort of thing. And this was a place where it was like, hey, I'm helping out. I'm doing something. This is like, I get that. The weird part about it was like the shame to people who didn't do that. And it was kind of weird. Um, so yes, sponsors are sort of appointed without oversight. Typically, the group leaders, and they're not leaders; they're trusted servants. Um, we don't have leadership; we have trusted servants. But typically, like the group president will have kind of oversight over who is allowed to take sponsors slash um, like guide the steps, basically. Usually there's just, like, these are the guidelines that they have set out. For us, it was, I think that they had to have worked the steps at least once and have, currently 12 months clean and sober. Was, I think, for, like, almost all the groups around here. For sure, the main 2 that I went to. Um, one of them, I remember it was more, like, encouraged to be more like 3 years, but it wasn't, like, required. And I think that you could kind of say like, "Oh, I have a sponsor from, like, a previous home group," and they would kinda go along with that. I had seen that in a couple of places where it's like, "Well, I have a sponsor at such and such a group, but, like, this group is more convenient for me to meet at. So I'm meeting here, but my sponsor isn't here." And that was accepted, but then that person wasn't really, like, accepted as, like, a member of the group. They were kind of like a offset member of the group. And a lot of times if there was, like, chapter meetings and stuff like that, they weren't allowed to, like, vote on stuff if they didn't have a sponsor that was, like, in the direct line of sponsors in the group. So yes and no. His hand down and refund is like, if they could have, they probably would have. It was that kind of thing where it was like, okay, like, who's making the coffee and blah 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 blah, and like which remind me sometime, and I'll tell you, like, the coffee Christmas story. Um, Not today, but remind me sometime, and I'll talk about the Christmas coffee. It's the AA churches, bowling leagues, softball leagues, sense of community. The term "no man is an island unto himself" comes to mind. Yeah, yeah, we definitely need a sense of community, and that's what I'm saying is, like, I think some of it was good. I think that some of it was a little bit too much. Where's the line? And that line isn't in the same place for everyone. For me, this was way over the line, but I don't know. Maybe I'm the odd one out.
Indoctrinated, like, I just was like, I was just an open book, and so it happened really quick and really strongly.
Now, to be clear, I'm trying to give you, like, an honest take of what being in these rooms is like. If you're watching this and you're like, "Huh, that sounds like a really interesting place to go. Al-Anon meetings will take you. You don't have to be an alcoholic or addicted to anything if you wanna go to, like, Al-Anon meetings. They'll take you. They work the same 12 steps. I mean, I'm just trying to give you an honest take of what it's like. So,
For me.
Yeah, you know, what's so interesting
to me,
is
it
so many
wasn't
people
great.
tell me that AA doesn't have recruitment. People don't like when I use the terminology around cults and religion applied to AA, people who are not in AA or in AA ideology, right? Like society at large is. So when I say AA's
There's
primary
so
purpose
much
is to
recruitment.
recruit, people give me a lot of pushback and they're like, AA doesn't recruit. You just told me you were recruited into Alcoholics Anonymous. No wonder why it's sunken fast for you, but it sinks in fast for a lot of us, including me. So it's not just you. The indoctrination works fast, right?
Yeah.
But you had a trusted person, a therapist. I'm assuming you trusted them and that's why you were so open.
It does sink in fast. Like, by the time you get to step 4, they're already, like, kind of fucking humiliating you. And if you haven't bought it at that point, you're probably gonna hit the door, right?
With your therapist. Your therapist literally recruited you, someone you trusted who knew all of your stuff, walked you hand in hand to sit in a meeting with you. Like, this is just like, my mind is like,
It's
that is
therapist.
the recruitment, people.
If
And
you're
so,
just
of
joining
course,
me
you're
now,
super receptive because you didn't walk in skeptical. You walked in holding your therapist's hand,
Yep.
metaphorically, not physically.
Yeah.
I mean, you
his
know what I mean? Like,
therapist
with the
brought him
approval
to a
of your
12-step meeting.
therapist. So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Why would you be hesitant? There's just
Oh my gosh, yes, Aunt Jer. Judges and probation officers are recruitment agents. Yes. And that is so I have thought about this a few times, is like writing a letter to the judge that put me in drug court and just to be like, "Hey, I need you to know what you did, where you put me as an innocent 19-year-old." Actually, I think I was 20 by the time I got sentenced. Because I did treatment and then I went into drug court, inpatient treatment. But yeah, I think about that, like writing a letter and being like, "Hey, like you realize that you sent a 20-year-old female into the lion's den with some of these guys." And again, I think that the concept of drug court, the concept of doing like a shit ton of therapy and really working on people on like finding themselves and keeping them out of jails and prisons, I actually really agree with. I think that there should be options on what type of treatment they're doing. I think that they should not be required to go to 12-step meetings. Maybe require them to go to group therapy or like a few different options on group therapy because the same thing isn't going to resonate for everyone, first of all, but like 12 steps only works for like 5% of the population. It's if you look at their own freaking studies, again, what's his face? Oh, I should have saved the chart for this week. 'Cause we talked about it last week. But like their own guy went out and did a study and he's like, "Yeah, AA isn't any better than any of these other things, but like we don't have anything that really does work." And this was, this was 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, we do have things that work now. Yay! So, you know, probation officers, judges, they're kind of operating in the past. We need to update shit. Generally specific says, "I really think church, etc., prey on people that have a high openness and willingness or desire to connect." Yes, I agree. I think it becomes parasocial in short order. I I don't necessarily agree with the terminology parasocial, but I think I get what you're saying there, and I agree with the concept. Um, give us your money and free labor. Yeah, yeah. And give us your money and free labor, and in return, we'll make you feel like we like you, regardless of whether we actually like you or not. Parasitical, parasitical. Thank you. It's a parasitical relationship. Thank you for correcting me. Like a parasite host relationship. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get you. Parasite host. Yeah. Thank you. I'm so used to like, it's YouTube. Sorry. Oh, my friends are here. My friends showed up at my house. I don't think they knew that I was streaming tonight. That's okay. We've got another hour to go. because look, we are only 13 minutes into this. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Person that you
Back
trust
to it.
is introducing you to it.
Yep. And honestly, that I think probably one of my most radical stances is like, if it weren't for the recruitment, I would feel much more like live and let live, like let AA exist. Like seriously, like if it wasn't, if it really was attraction rather than promotion, I would totally be on board with that. But because of step 12, I'm like, I don't know if I can get on board with that. Like nature abhors a vacuum. Why can't we just get rid of it and then have some?
Al says, oh, this is about I have two. Okay. I had two close friends who were both in AA, recovered, one relapsed, and ended up self-directing his demise in reaction. The others married with kids. And a woman that he met in treatment. Yeah. Um, it's the only possible way to succeed. Our other options are jails, institutions, and death. Didn't you know? Yeah. So here's the thing is basically about 5% of people will recover using the 12-step method, which is approximately the same percentage that will just self-desist on their own, that they just decide that they want to quit drinking and they are able to quit. Whether that just be, you know, tapering off or whether that be just cold turkey. But yeah, about the same percentage. And there are other, like, if you really do need help, if you're having trouble, there's other treatment methods that are like 60 to 70%. And then you can combine that with therapy, and therapy is also like more than 5%. I don't like therapy isn't like super high on its own unless it's like therapy that is directed by somebody who has specifically experience in substance abuse disorder. And it's not addiction. It's substance abuse disorder, and it's a specific disorder. And it addresses the behaviors of abusing substance, what led to that, and the behaviors around that. It doesn't like say that you as a person like need to feel shame and are shamed because of this like disease that you're going to live with for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. You just need to work, find ways to work with the behaviors.
Something that's based upon science and logic to like come and provide at least something better. I don't mean to say that from a place of like wishing harm upon members, because I was a member. Like I believed with every fabric of my being that this was true, and now I don't. And that's been one of the greatest mind fucks of all, is that process of like believing in an ideology with like everything I have, and then holy shit, like I don't think it's true anymore. What? It's like,
and I think that's true for anybody who comes out of a really high control group. That's the guy who wrote the bite model. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Dang it, it just slipped me. But he was in the Moonies, and he talks about how he realized one day that like Moon lied, and that meant that he wasn't trustworthy. And if he wasn't trustworthy, then he couldn't be a worthy being. And like then it was like this whole thing of like, who is he if he's not, a Mooney? And he'd given up his whole identity and everything to this. Is it Stephen Hassan? Thank you, Aunt Jer. But yeah, like he talks about this shit. It's like it just like one day it just like fucking like the walls come down. Like holy shit. Holy shit.
it's a total like existential crisis mind fuck. Like
Yeah. Like who am I?
Yeah.
I've given my whole entire life to
100%. Are you still actively deprogramming from AA?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like you, this whole process of going into it and coming out of it has caused me to become fascinated with like cults and watching all the cult documentaries and reading the books and diving into like Stanton Peele's work and all of that stuff, which honestly, even though I credit 12-step with causing an immense amount of harm in my life, which we'll get to later on, and like you, leaving the rooms and starting the deprogramming journey was the absolute hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. This is speaking from a guy who like spent, thankfully not all that, like cannabis was my primary sort of substance that was there all the time. But like I got really addicted to like crack at one point. I got really addicted to meth. Like I've been through some shit regarding like substances, getting arrested, all of that.
I didn't do the crack and the meth. I did, like, a lot of cocaine. I did some meth 'cause, like, it was there. But, like, I did a lot of, like, hallucinogens and shit. Um, because a lot of it was shit that was, like, I was just dealing with trauma. I was just a kid who, like, needed to, like, deal with trauma, and because of my past experience with therapy, that wasn't something that I was immediately drawn to because I'd had bad past experiences with therapy. Now, this gave me more bad experiences with therapy, but I will say that I have had good experiences with therapy since then, and I do I do support people going to therapy. I really do. I my dad's dead, he died last year. He, was retired for many years before he died. He was a therapist, and he was not a good therapist, alright? He was in fact, sometimes I would say he was, like, downright a bad therapist. There's some things that he did that was a bad therapist, but I think that there were people that he genuinely helped. Like, in fact, I know that. Like, there are people who, like, came up to me, like, at his funeral and at the like, so many people, like, that told me that he genuinely helped them, and he wasn't even, like I think he's probably a pretty bad therapist. And so, my point is that I think most therapists are better than that, right? And even when you kinda have a shitty therapist, a lot of times there's, like, maybe something good that you can get out of it, and that's not to say that you should stay with the shitty therapist. If it's a shitty therapist, find a new therapist. But there are enough good ones out there that you can find a good I think that a lot of people are absolutely abusing drugs to fill a hole in their lives. I think that that's where a lot of people come from, and NA kind of feeds on that, right? So NA is there when you get arrested for whatever. Now, I talked about this last week. She asked, I don't think you were here. I talked about the first time I went to a narcotics anonymous meeting was when I was in jail. And this group, specifically one of their outreach programs, was that they would go and have meetings. They would go to the jail and they had like a specific agreement that they had with the jail that they came in, I think it was like twice a week, and recruited people in jail who like maybe they're addicts, maybe they're going through some shit. But they basically get them in a room and they tell us they're going to jail. And for me, the week that I was in jail, it was really bad weather and we weren't like allowed outside for rec. Like we just didn't get rec. It was like if the weather was bad, we just didn't get rec. It wasn't like I don't know how other jails do that because I feel like there has to be a way. But I got sick of like looking at the same four walls and the same eight women. And I was like, okay, yeah, you said that I can go to a 12-step meeting. I will go. It's outreach. That's what they call it. But yeah, it's recruitment. We say outreach. Did I say outreach? I probably did because that's again one of the things. It's just like it's the specific nomenclature changes the whole thing. Yeah, because it's a lot of it is stuff that is just been imprinted. Like there's stuff he's going to talk about it in a little bit, and I hope we're gonna get to it. But, like, there's like, we would chant at the meetings. There were, like, specific things that we would all chant aloud. Like, there's just yeah,
But leaving that cult was
it was
absolutely the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. But at the same time,
it
I
was harder
also
than
feel
quitting
like it
smoking
was the
cigarettes.
greatest catalyst for my like evolution and growth and transformation. And
Not for me,
really,
but
I say this from the bottom of my heart. I
I'm
don't
glad for
regret
him.
my time there. Like
I'm
even
glad
though
for
it was
him.
so painful, I
I
learned
do.
so much about myself and like friendship.
I would like to get to a point where I'm, like, as non-bitter as the 2 of them are about their time, because both of them are like, "Oh, they don't regret their time." It was like, yeah, they realized that it was not right for them, but, like, um, yeah, I do. I regret all of the things that I gave up for that group, for those stupid fucking 12 steps. I regret all of the shit that they fucking put me through. I regret all of the humiliation rituals that I endured. Um, yeah, I regret a lot of it. Is it possible boredom was a possible appeal to trying drugs and boredom? No, probably not on the appeal to trying drugs. Again, I went through some kind of traumatic shit when I was a teenager. I don't really talk about it. But like that's I think anybody who had gone through that as a teenager, like tries at least a little bit of something. I was not big on alcohol and my big thing was I don't know if I should say, but I had one drug that was not people's, like, typical drug of choice, and that was kinda what got me in trouble a lot. Idle hands are the devil's workshop and all. But I do agree that that might be the case for some people.
And like learning what friendship isn't so that I can like work to cultivate what my idea of friendship is. Like that was huge for me because of like wanting to fit in school. When I came into the rooms, I'm like, I want to be friends with everybody. And now I'm like, actually, there's a certain flavor of like friend that I really am like aiming to have be a part of my life. And what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. I mean, so yeah, I'm very much still on my deprogramming journey. I'm really at that point, like you've talked about on so many of your videos. It's like you kind of laid these breadcrumbs where it's like when I started dissenting online, that was sort of it provided me with room for even more growth. And I'm like, yep, she's speaking to me right now. It's time. So and yeah, absolutely. I'm still on my deprogramming journey 100%.
My God, you're so right. You do have a gift speaking from the heart. I just was about to cry and then I had the chills and then I've just, it's been like, I just really feel your journey so much. I think that it's perfect for you to the way that you express yourself. Like, yeah, I really feel what you're saying. So I agree that there's a gift that is happening right now, people. So I just really appreciate you. And
Sorry.
what I find striking about your story is that you left about 5 years ago, right? You were there a year and a half, and 5 years later, you are still getting it out of your head. This
Yeah.
is what I want to like put like an exclamation point on, which is like,
I was there a lot longer. I think I was there for, like, 4 years. That would be yeah. Yeah, 4 years, and then I've been out for, like, 6. But, yeah, isn't that interesting that he's been out for 5 years? He was 18 months in, and it's still
um,
he's
it
still
is
deprogramming.
AA ideology, 12-step ideology, NA is cunning,
It
baffling,
is
and
easy to be
powerful. Like how
Yeah.
they say alcohol is, I'm like, Alcoholics Anonymous is. It literally, for me, it was harder, like you said, it was harder for me to get sober from AA, to leave AA, than to get sober in the first place. And that was brutal.
Yeah.
So fully
Yeah.
on board. Wow. Like you are so courageous, first of all, to leave, and second of all, to get to a place where you're ready to speak about it, because we've been messaging for a little while now. And now it's like, boom. I feel like for me, it was like the volcano was building and I was never going to talk about AA on the internet. Then all of a sudden I was like, I can't not. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm going to do this. This is bananas.
I think it is so wild. Like, it is so bananas to me that I've been saying this for years. Those of you who've, like, known my channel for years, who've heard me, like, I will mention it offhand. Anytime I, like, try to get into it, somebody will, like, get mad at me in the comments and shit like that. People will tell me to shut up. People will tell me it helps people. People will tell me, like, you should maybe, like, back down from that position." And then when I was finally like, "You know what? Like, I'm gonna fucking talk about this shit. Like, I need to fucking talk about this shit." I found both of these guys immediately, and I found another fucking channel. Like, I was just like, "Isn't this fucking wild?" That there are these people who like, she hasn't been talking about it, like, for that long, but, like, still, like, there are these people who are out there fucking saying this shit. It's just we need more fucking voices saying it. June, what was this she asked? "I would like to eventually set up a show." Human Fecal. Oh, is he the one who he's working the 12 steps, yeah? Um, you're doing a show tonight. Uh, you're gonna politely disagree with are you gonna do a reaction to a reaction to I I'm here for it. My friends are over at my house, so I probably am gonna leave, in, like, 45 minutes and actually get off. get off the internet. But yeah, I'd be interested to see. I would be interested to see a reaction for sure. And definitely we should get together sometime. Sorry, I keep banging the desk, but definitely we should get together sometime and talk, me and your buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm still exploding.
Yep. Yep. And you are so appreciated for it. I mean, just your courage and your the way you're able to articulate and just every
Sometimes these are the best friends, are like the ones that you can like disagree on. So, like that's one of my friends is a flat earther. Again, you guys have heard me talk about him before. Obviously, I think the earth is a sphere.
everything about it. It was just like, this is exactly what this is, just a wonderful flavor of people that are stepping out and dissenting online.
I never got to talk about the good. How many times it's like, look, I'm here to talk about the shooting that happened in Minnesota. No, we never got to talk about the shooting that happened in Minnesota. But anyway,
When I left, there was even less
back to this.
people speaking about this, at least in video form. And so really, when I looked up videos, really the only thing that I could find was something about deconstructing the 12-step delusion or something. But then I discovered Clackaholics Anonymous, which like, shout out to you, Victor. Like,
What's up,
I don't know what that is.
yeah. Victor, you were like
Just
my
think
like
about even a little bit more,
quacky bedtime stories, like going to sleep for like, I mean, you still are, but like, man, I
I wonder what that is. It like they're talking about like crazy shit that happened in AA? Because like that would maybe make me feel a little bit weird. Like it is supposed to be anonymous. We are supposed to.
just and so that was pretty much it. But oh my gosh, it was just this breath of fresh air. And then I discovered you, and it's been so validating to know that like I'm not alone in my experience, because it really was so lonely at the beginning.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, I form very, very deep connections with the people that become my friends and with the people that I love in my life. You know, I really crave like deep conversation. And so my friends, like we talk about the deep stuff. When I left the rooms, and because I was a true believer, my whole milieu was other true believers. And so of course I was going to be shunned, like to the highest degree. I live in a small city in the Bay Area on the ocean. And so like the flavor of NA here is like really culty, and you pass by the people a lot on the streets. And just to see the people who once like said that they loved me unconditionally, like turn their nose up at me when I pass by and ignore me, it broke my heart. It really.
Yeah, that is a weird feeling. Like when you quit going and all of a sudden, like when you see them in public and the way that they treat you is if you're like diseased, if you're like some sort of leper. And I remember being in it, and the assumption was when you see people that like, oh, well, the only option, like this is the only option. And if you leave this path, it's jails, institutions, and death. So like they are like on their way to the grave if we see them outside of these rooms and they're not going to meetings. Isn't that wild? Like that's Jess says, personally, I think noticing things that most people don't makes for a very long life. Most people are sleepwalking through life, in his opinion. Maybe. But if most people are sleepwalking, are we saying like ignorance is bliss, where 'tis folly to be wise? Is that?
It broke my heart, and it caused me to not
I don't know.
trust
But I
other
only got
people
40
for a
more
period of
minutes.
time when I left. I'm like, well, if everyone out there is just conditional and I have to believe a certain thing in order to get accepted, kind of like.
I might, if people are down for it, I might talk a little bit about the shooting here in like maybe 15 minutes or so. With like the last 30 minutes of the episode, usually I try to take the last 30 minutes to just like chat. But I don't have Spackle here today, so we might, if you guys are interested in hearing my opinion on that.
Like screw people, you know? And over time, I had to relearn that, like, actually, I would say more people don't believe this stuff than do, even though society is like indoctrinated into it. When I talk to a lot of people out in the
I
world
don't
about my
know.
experience, they're like, oh yeah, I don't believe that at all. Like that's like that's ridiculous. What, you mean they believe that shit in there? Like, my God, I'm glad you got out, man.
We believe
That's
a
what
lot
I
of
think when
shit.
people tell me
People are
about
crazy.
these like ideologies or cults that they've left and they tell me what they believe. I'm like, what? But that's what they think about us.
Yep.
For anybody, any of our international friends here, that's Northern California, right?
Yes, yes, yep. Northern California, about 70 miles south of San Francisco. Yep, on the ocean. Beautiful, beautiful city. I love living here, but it's definitely a small. It has small town vibes in terms, especially of like being in the rooms and then leaving. That's been a challenge to encounter, and like ultimately where I've landed is like those weren't really my friends, you know.
Mm.
They were people who it seemed like they were sort of facades of friends, and you know, I'm sure
Yeah.
that if I stayed, like that facade would have been maintained, but at the level of depth that I crave and connections, they're not my friends, and you know, in the end.
But it feels immediately like a connection. When you first walk into that room and you're like, "Oh, I'm like nobody my friends have cut me off, my actual friends have cut me off because I got arrested, my family isn't talking to me because I got arrested, blah, blah, blah." Like, these people are like, "We've been there. We're your family. We're your friends." And it feels so welcoming, and it feels like there should be more depth to it, but there really isn't. It's all a facade. He's absolutely right.
They show their true colors. But what I will say, and this is a really beautiful, this is what I call the gem of my experience in NA, is that my 3 best friends that I have in the whole world came from NA. And they are also people that are not in NA anymore. And
Isn't
it
that
was
funny?
just such a cool experience to like become friends with them and cultivate this beautiful friendship.
I
But then
remember
it was
too.
like when we left, it was like there was a stencil that had like contained us. These are the things that we can talk about. These are the ideas that we can have. These are the things we can't talk about or believe about ourselves. And then when we left and started deprogramming, that stencil got lifted off, and we got to discover this whole beautiful landscape of friendship underneath the stencil. That was just so beautiful, and still is my best friend in the entire world. We met on like because you know, when you're in the rooms, like there's the conventions and then there's like the campouts and all. I would go to all of that stuff. So we met on this, ironically, this campout called the Set 'em Free campout.
Oh, the conventions.
But there was this, it was on the American River, and we went like whitewater rafting, and
I've never been
his name's
whitewater
Jake.
rafting.
It was like the campfire meeting, and I was sharing, and like we had seen each other at a meeting before, but he actually arrived at camp and like walked up to the campfire when I was sharing. From his words, he said later, he was like, "I just heard you speaking," and I'm like, "I gotta be
Sammy,
this
you
guy's
still
friend."
around?
Like, we got to become friends, and so we connected, and then ended up like sitting in the very front of the whitewater raft. It was so much fun, and that was just such a beautiful, beautiful gem. It's interesting too because Jake is, I don't know what you would call it. I don't like these words like clean and sober, but he doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke weed. He does like coaching. So he helps people, like sort of a holistic approach of like helping people move beyond their habits. And that's what's so cool about true friendship to me is, and this is another one of the lies in the rooms, is that they say, oh, well, you can't hang out with people that aren't like doing the deal. That's dangerous. They're going to lead you down a bad road. But
Yeah, we weren't, like, allowed to have friends that weren't at least in some type of 12-step program. So, it was like, if we wanted to be friends with somebody, like, they needed to be, like, an Al-Anon if they weren't addicted to anything. Or if you, like, noticed that there was, like, somebody at your church who had a drinking problem, who, like, maybe mentioned it, then you would be encouraged to strike up a friendship with that person with, like, the intention to get them in the rooms for their drinking problem. That kinda shit. I talked about that a little bit last week where they didn't make me break up with my boyfriend, but they basically told me that I was going to be stuck in inpatient treatment longer if I didn't break up with my boyfriend that I had when I went into the program, and it was like, "You have to wait a year before you can have, uh, even a pet. You can't have a pet or a partner for a year, wait a year, and then get a plant." That's what they tell us. Which, by the way, here this is my plant. I still have it. But, yeah, you don't get, yeah, it is absolute total crap. I Oh, do I not have all comments on? I thought I had all comments on. Somebody was asking about you in the comments, Sammy. But yeah, as soon as they found out that, the place where I was working, one of my managers had a drinking problem and was kind of flirty, well, they absolutely encouraged me to date him and get him in the rooms, even though it hadn't been a year, right? So, yeah, not only is it bullcrap, but, They don't even believe it. Like they'll give you a total bait and switch.
I don't believe exactly the things that Jake believes about substances, but I totally encourage his journey because I want my friends to be the happiest, healthiest selves that they could possibly be, regardless if that journey looks a little bit different from mine. And the friendships that I made there really were the gems.
The first 4.5 years of my sobriety were in San Francisco. We did campouts. It was the American River. So I totally feel you on that one before I moved overseas. I have only been to NA maybe 3 times in my life. And that was when I worked in a rehab in Bali, Indonesia. And I was the chaperone on the druggy buggy to bring the rehabbers to NA, right? So
outreach.
I don't know actually, and a lot of people who watch or listen to the podcast are people from NA, right?
Yes,
so I'm curious if we can look at what are some of the things that when you were inside Narcotics Anonymous that you believed that you no longer believe to be true?
Well, I think that despite the fact that NA and AA kind of have this feud, it's like you're not really supposed to say sober in an NA meeting. You're supposed to say clean. And if you're in an AA meeting, you're not supposed to say clean. You're supposed to say sober. They're so similar to each other. They're so similar to each other. And so the sort of foundation of the ideology, I think, essentially is the same. If I identify as an addict, that I have this chronic progressive disease, right? But it doesn't look like the other diseases because it's a spiritual disease, right? And whatever that means. And so
it means you need Bill's religion. That's what it means. If you have a spiritual malady, you need Bill's religion.
Right. And so there's that aspect to it. Some of the readings that we would read at the beginning of the meetings are specifically written for each program. There were certain, like, these were like the really culty parts of the meetings when the person reading the pamphlet would say, "We must remember that we are sick people." And then everyone in the room would go, "Sick." And so it's this constant. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That makes me very emotional.
There was like multiple parts. So we had like these sheets that would be like a laminated sheet that they would put out on different chairs. And then those would be like the coveted chairs that people wanted to get one of those, right? And so you'd get there early so that you could get one of the sheets. And then there was like certain bold words that were on each of the, because we go through and that person would read it. And they would do whatever reading. And like they would do like the JFT. So like that's also one that I have. I don't have my photo. Sorry. But yeah, so this one has like a lot of like the stuff that we would read. And like, but this was the JFT. This was like my one that I would try to get, which is like the daily reading. It's like your daily scripture reading, right? Like, do you guys want to hear the reading? No, we're not going to do the reading for today.
Sorry. Here.
Right. And so every single day, we're reading this thing and everyone in the room is chanting, "Sick." We must remember we are sick people, sick, over and over and over. And then of course there's the part about if you do the suggestions, then you'll not go to like jails, institutions, and death. And everyone in the room goes, "Jails, institutions, and death."
Oh my.
But really the we must remember we are sick people, that's the one that just absolutely breaks my heart, because I really feel like the readings are where so much of the brainwashing comes in, to where it's like you're hearing them every single day. And so even if you're on your phone and you're not paying attention to them, it's seeping into the mind. And especially if
which we didn't have smartphones. Again, when I was in the rooms, we had cell phones and we could text, but there wasn't. I remember it was I got like the snake game on my phone for when I had to like sit through court, because like once a week I had to like go and sit through court. Yeah.
someone was like me and really believed in it.
Oh, Sandy says, well, Sammy wants it. Okay. Let's see. What's today? Today's the 13th. Okay. So I'll read some of it. Here. I'll do this and then, sorry, the other way. I went the other way. Okay. I'll do this and then I'll go back to the other screen when I'm done. Okay. I'll read this to you. So it starts out by telling us like, here's like our basic text. And this is the basic text reading is: help for addicts begins only when we are able to admit complete defeat. And then it goes on this whole thing about like step 1 and like why we have to like, this is another thing that we would repeat. Why 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. This used to be like a joke that was like an ongoing joke. I remember like we'd be like, how many addicts does it take to change a light bulb? 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. Right. And then at the end, we're supposed to say, just for today, I admit that I'm powerless over my addiction. I will surrender to win. What the fuck does that even mean? But it's like every day there's some fucking bullshit. All right, done. Hopefully that was quick enough.
I believed that I was sick. And let me tell you,
It does sound like nobody wants to talk about the shooting in Minneapolis anymore, which I understand. People are on overload about it, and like there's so much other shit going on. So I am just going to continue with this instead of talking about that. But yes, apparently you are powerless, and even if you're not an addict or an alcoholic, Sammy, we've also got this one, which is that's the 12 and 12. Sorry. Okay, well, you know what? The 12 and 12 of Al-Anon will actually have these are the 12 steps and 12 traditions of Al-Anon, which is just for friends and loved ones, like family members of people who are addicted. And guess what your step one is? If you have a friend or family member that's ever been an alcoholic or addicted to anything, or like been like really way into women, is maybe like a little bit of like a sexaholic, or maybe is a little bit emotional and needs to go to Emotions Anonymous, right? Here's our step one for you, is that we admitted that we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become or whatever their addiction is. That we, as the loved one, are powerless over their thing that they're addicted to, and that our lives have become unmanageable as a result. Like what? Exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like when I quit smoking cigarettes, like, yeah, that was as far as addiction response and actually like having headaches and nausea and that sort of shit, like that was harder than any of that other shit. But you know what? It was because I was powerful, that I was able to do it. I quit that shit because I wanted to. I've got 2 buddies in the other room who both had drinking problems. And guess what? Both of them quit because they were powerful men who decided, "Hey, I'm not gonna let this shit rule my life. I'm not gonna do this shit anymore. I have the power to stop." And they fucking did. See, addiction is a powerful thing. And we're all, yeah, exactly. Does this sound familiar? Let go and let God. Give up your will. Let God take over. I'm all for people getting well, but without a God, I prefer with or without a God. I prefer without, but that's me. And that's again, I feel the same way, GeoSam. And the main problem that I have about this program and like the religiosity of this program is that they claim that it's an agnostic program, but it's not. It's very much a Christian program. It's very much um, based on what this a pastor who was a pastor of the Calvary group, um, what all of his what his basically, Bill Wilson took this pastor's basically lectures or sermons and turned them into lectures that he used at the Oxford group. And from that's when he met Dr. Bob. And then the two of them together wrote the big book, this one. And that was how they founded Alcoholics Anonymous. Yes. Is absolutely Godspeak. Yes. Yes, you do have the power. Yeah. It wasn't God that got you sober. It was yourself that got you sober. You got yourself sober. You quit. Is there such a thing as an objectively evil act? Probably. Um, yeah. Not sure how that's related, but yeah. I'm gonna see how much of this we can get finished up in like the next 28 minutes. So we'll see.
coming from a guy who was kind of groomed to believe that I was unworthy of love and that I wasn't enough and that I was different. The fact of the matter is that I've really come to terms with the fact now in my life that like I am different. I haven't gotten diagnosed, but like I'm definitely neurospicy. I'm pretty sure that I have like some form of ADD. So that's another way that like
another
your
thing.
content really resonates with me because you're talking about some of these aspects of yourself that
Is they give you this like, oh, well, you were always different in any like social group. And I think a lot of times it's like I wasn't different because I was an addict, but like they give you this you have been an addict ever since you were born. You were predisposed to be an addict. And therefore, unless if you had gotten into Al-Anon when you were younger or something, you might have been able to stay away from it, but you were always predisposed to do it. And it's just like, that's not, but they teach you that, like, oh, look at all these things that you did when you were a kid. See, you were an addict even then before you ever took your first drink or your first drug.
We're labeled as untreated alcoholism. And I'm just like, oh man, that's so me. I could just relate so much to that. So to come into an ideology where it's said that I must remember that I'm a sick person, it, on the one hand, super harmful, but on the other hand, it made sense. It's like, of course I'm a sick person. I get it now. I'm sick. I've always been sick. Like, it makes so much sense.
We're
Looking
always
back on it,
sick.
that part of it was so
I
harmful.
have the
To go back to your
disease
question, though, I think
of
that
addiction.
NA essentially lumps, they try to sort of incorporate alcohol into the spectrum of drugs. So they'll, in one of the readings, it's like, we don't need to differentiate alcohol from other substances because alcohol is a drug, which, like, it is. Like, that makes sense to not have that line drawn between substances, I think, when people are sharing. But really, from my experience going to like NA meetings and AA, like other than some language, the core message of the cult is the same. It's built upon bullshit. And even though they try to differentiate themselves from that, like, that's still what it is. It's bullshit.
Totally. Yeah.
That's another, like, good point that he's making is, like, so technically I was a member of NA, but then I would go to AA meetings. But, like, I have all of these AA books. I have, like, this one about, like, this is about Bill Wilson's life. What is it, like 400 pages about Bill Wilson's life? Right? It's fucking ridiculous. And we treat him like a cult figure, and they say, "Oh, well, there is no, like, leader. There's only trusted servants." Yeah, but, like, we have this cult figure of Bill Wilson that we're all supposed to, like, treat like he's some type of fucking demigod or something.
I would.
And that's another thing, GeoSam, is like we say in the rooms that, like, you can work the steps if you are a non-believer, but realistically you can't. And then there's also this thing that's like a bit bait and switch where they will say, well, you only have to believe in a higher power. Now, the big book does say God. But the NA big book says higher power. And there's this thing that they do where they're like, well, higher power is like anything that is stronger and greater than you. So, like, that can be a group of people. And, like, therefore you can substitute this group as your higher power. And so when it says, like, give up your will to the higher power, right? Your will is not your own. Your will now belongs to the higher power. Let the higher power guide you. That's the group, right? You're just supposed to let group think guide you. Don't have any of your own thoughts. Empty mind, just group think.
Love to actually
you're
continue my
non-believer.
story of my time there, because people might think, oh, it wasn't in the rooms for very long. Like, it was only a year and a half. Like, I worked the steps
What?
twice. I had my first sponsor who turned out to just be
Twice.
just the nerve of it. Looking back, I'm like, I can't believe this
I
happened
mean, I
to
did
me.
it a few times, but
He was so just in my business, man. Like, he was in my business. So when I first came into the rooms, I was still with my ex-girlfriend, and she was like
I was
smoking
there
weed all the
for 4
time. And of course, I
years,
couldn't
so.
share about that at a meeting, or else I don't know what would happen. I ended up telling that sponsor that, like, oh, she smokes weed. And he literally said, he's like, oh my God, well, tonight I want to come with you to your house and break up with her for you. Yeah. Like, who the fuck does that?
No, my group wasn't that bad,
I was
but
like,
they
whoa.
were like, have you broken up with him yet? Have you broken up with him yet? Have you broken up with him yet? Like, yeah, they weren't. Now, this guy's sponsor literally wanted to go to his house and break up with his girlfriend. It does not surprise me. It does not surprise me. Technically, the drug or alcohol was the higher power. Thus, there is a danger in that line of thinking. Yeah, see, that's okay. Sorry, I wasn't quite sure where you were going with that, but yes, exactly. It's saying that, oh, this drug was more powerful than I am. Like, that's very dangerous thinking, and I've seen that, I believe, lead to relapse for people where it's like they had a bad day at work or whatever, and maybe somebody offered them a beer and they drank the beer, and then they believe that because they're an addict and because they have no self-control because they're an addict, that they immediately like go out and like try to score some heroin, right? Because like they're an addict. And I don't believe that. And I think that is I think that hurts people. I really do. Yes. Yes. Nebulously giving up power to something. Um, I I don't think that we should be giving up our power to anything. I think that that's ridiculous.
I mean, your therapist is recruiting you, bringing you, literally physically bringing you into a
Therapist.
cult. That
His
5 years after
therapist
leaving,
brought
you're
him
still
in.
trying to get it the fuck out of your head. Wait, can I ask real quick? Are you still with that therapist?
Technically, I graduated.
remember
she
this.
graduated
This
me
is
from
weird.
therapy. I mean, there's a whole arc to this story. It's gonna get crazier, but technically, she still is my therapist. She didn't actually know. It was almost like the system just like had told her this is what you do with someone that's like struggling with drugs and alcohol. So
She hadn't been to NA herself or AA?
nope.
Oh, she was just told
They
that's the
just-
solution. She didn't know. She didn't go.
That's what they
She
tell
was like,
them.
"Oh, that was my first meeting too." It was just passed
program.
along to her that like, "Oh, if someone's
Oh.
struggling with these issues, this is the place that maybe you would suggest for them to go." And so through my journey, I actually ended up teaching my therapist.
Yeah.
And so she ended up kind of like yours. She helped me to deprogram from it eventually. when
I'm
it came time
glad
for
that
to
his
happen. And then she
therapist
also started letting me know. She's like,
realized that.
"Yeah, and I've noticed that like there were a couple of other therapists that also are like 12-step members, and they're like crossing all sorts of like boundaries with clients, and like I don't know, like this is starting to seem a little like fishy." So
If anybody
My therapist absolutely crossed boundaries. Not anything like yucky, but like stuff that's like I would have her like she would hold on to my medication for me because I have really bad ADHD, and my doctor was like, do not stop taking your ADHD meds. Like that is a terrible idea. You're gonna get yourself into more trouble. Don't fucking do that. And like the thing that I did was I had my therapist would keep my ADHD meds and like give me my ADHD meds every week at my meeting because like I couldn't trust myself to do it. And then when I graduated from therapy, I had like literally I had like a lockbox that like my roommate had like the key to. And it was like once a week I would go and get the key and unlock the lockbox and get my meds out. And like they didn't like observe me, but like it was like the concept of like keeping myself, which I do think that there is something to be said for that. Like if you're somebody who like deals with that shit, I don't think that's a bad idea, by the way, like the whole lockbox thing and having somebody do it. But the fact that like that was my like therapist's like it shouldn't be your therapist. And it's weird that it was the therapist suggested. But she's like, well, I can just like hold on to those for you.
has a therapist who's in 12-step, run. It's like the
Fucking
most
run.
dangerous run.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
wait, now let's go back really quickly. Your sponsor, did you let your sponsor into your home to your girlfriend? What happened?
Fuck no. I was like, dude, no. I'm like, if I break up with her, like I'm gonna do that on my own terms. Like I don't need some like pseudo
did, like,
person
break up with
other
my
than me
partner.
to like make that decision. Thank you very much. Like I'm not smoking weed, I'm not doing drugs, I'm being a good obedient little cult member. You cannot cross the threshold, you vampire.
And I did it before I even got out of inpatient.
Totally. You know, it's
so
so
like
funny.
I didn't even
After
give
leaving
them
AA,
a
as
chance
I'm sure you saw or heard,
like
I mean,
not do drugs.
I got
around me.
assessed as autistic and later ADHD. And I think that's part of the reason why I got locked in so deep into the ideology is because I heard other individuals who I'm going to assume now that I understand neurodivergence, neurospiciness, is that the people that I was hearing in the rooms talk about alcoholism, I do it in quotes, right? Because they were talking about the way that they were their entire lives, how they thought, how they felt, how they socialized, how their sensory system experienced the world,
They're
hypersensitivities,
different.
all these things. And they called it all alcoholism in the rooms I
Yeah.
was in. Now I think I was identifying with autism and ADHD, or even someone who was autistic and ADHD, which has been my assessment. And they were saying it's all alcoholism. And they were saying these things that really rang true to my childhood as well. Like you said, like we didn't get the rule book for life or the handbook for life, or socializing was different or whatever.
And I think that's true for a lot of women that like we didn't get necessarily the diagnosis for the autism ADHD two-pack combo because we were able to sort of look like we were fitting in enough to where we were able to slide under the radar. And a lot of us have made it to adulthood just getting by, white knuckling it. And I think that a lot of people turn to substance abuse in those situations just because it's like they're self-medicating. It's not even I wouldn't even say in a lot of cases, I don't even know that it's necessarily substance abuse disorder or substance use disorder. Maybe some of it is bordering on that, but it's not something that's like you're gonna be cursed with for the rest of your life. Like, it's when I think about it now, it, like, sounds like something that was, like, literally like a curse, like a generational curse that's been put on you. 100% agree. Well, thank you, Sammy. Yeah, it's messed up. Like, I regret giving so much of my life to this organization. But I'm so glad to hear that other people are speaking out against it now. Like, this is so encouraging to me, and this is so uplifting to me. I do wanna be clear that as much as I, like, talk shit about this organization, it is, like, making me feel better. It's absolutely cathartic to be able to speak out about
They
these
call
things.
that all alcoholism, like
It's
as if
fucked
you
up.
were alcoholic before you ever picked up a drink, because alcoholic is a fundamental thing about who you are. Alcohol is just on top of that. Where now I understand it that alcohol use disorder is actually your behavior of drinking. And what's
Right.
underneath is who I am naturally that can be optimized for sure through nutrition, through movement, through sleep. There are ways to optimize my nervous system.
Yeah.
But a lot of like who I am neurologically is not fixed because neuroplasticity, but is more or less stable, right? And that's not to be prayed away, inventoried away, look at my part and try to find a doorknob or a higher power of my understanding to shift. It's more about learning how I operate and not trying to conform to society, try to be myself. But then you find yourselves in AA and it's like conform to the group think here and pray away your natural tendencies. But it
Yep.
feels like it fits because we always knew we were different.
Yep. 100,000% in NA,
It's, like,
sort of
embarrassing
similar
that they got
to
us.
your untreated alcoholism. What they would say to me is, that's because you're an addict. These behaviors are that way. That's because you're an addict,
Because you're
right?
an addict.
So that was kind of their way of like shoehorning you
Because we've
into
always been
leaning more
addicts.
into the ideology, right? And they also have these things called the 5 things in NA, where it's like, go to meetings, work the steps, get a sponsor, have a higher power, and be of service. They were only suggestions, right? But those were the 5 requirements if you really wanted to belong in the rooms. And there
And
were
not
also
die.
and not die. Oh yeah, that too, right?
Like, that's yeah. So, like, they're only suggestions, but, like, that's what you need to do to not die. And and, like, they're laughing about it, but, like, they're laughing about it because they were fucking serious about it. That's why we laugh, because we said it with complete serious face.
Exclamation point there. Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah.
We suggest you wear a parachute if you jump out of the airplane. It's just a
Right. It's
suggestion.
just
Oh,
a
it's a
suggestion.
suggestion.
Yeah, right. You don't have to do it. It's God.
But you'll
Oh
die
my
if you
gosh.
don't, but you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what ended up happening as we go?
I think there's a lot of stuff that we can diagnose ourselves, but yeah, I think so psychiatrist, is definitely different than therapist. It kinda depends on states, but yeah.
More into my story is that about 4 months in, my mom had really graciously paid for a international trip with me and my ex, and we went to Europe. We went to Great Britain. We ended up going to Ireland and doing a pilgrimage along like my ancestors' journey during the potato famine and coming to America. Really cool. The process of being on that trip,
That sounds like fun.
my mom cooked spaghetti one night for us, the cousins, and my ex
You
felt like
vodka
her portion
spaghetti.
of spaghetti, there was like less sauce than the rest of the family. So she freaked out and started like cussing my mom out in front of the rest of the family. It was like the crack in my brainwashing that happened with leaving NA, where it was like, the way I think of it is like there's this like vase that's on a shelf, right? And so there are all these little, like maybe little hints that something's amiss, but I'm like dancing around trying to like keep the vase upright as there's like an earthquake starting to happen, and then there's a
How
really
it
big tremor, and the vase goes whoop, and like falls off and it smashes into like a million pieces on the ground. And so it's like you can try to like glue the base back together, but really you never.
See, I never had it, like, all come crashing down. I just had it, like, where I was like, "This is" like, I caught it, and I was like, "But this is heavy. I'm just gonna, like, put it down, not back on the shelf. I don't need it." And it wasn't until I was later that I was like it wasn't until I learned about the bite model that I was like, "Wait, that's that's the 12 steps." Like, that's what I learned about was it Stephen Hassan? Is that was his name? And when I learned about his again, he was a former Moonie, and he left the Moonies and developed this bite model for basically identifying what is a cult. And when I heard about that, I was like, "But that's everything that I went through. It's everything that we did in the 12 steps."
Can. It's like that's the whole thing.
And it
Once I
all like
see like
Yeah.
the real situation, it's really impossible to like go back. I couldn't ever go back into an NA meeting, and I never really will, and I never want to, because it's just I see the shattered vase lying all
Yeah.
over the ground, right?
You
and mind you, like, this whole time I'd had that shit walking around in my brain, right? So, like, when people had talked about, like, "Oh, well, like, I had stopped going to meetings. I had started being an outcast of the group. I had started being, like, the bad person for the group, but I still believed all of it for years and years and years. That, like, if people talked about, having an addiction, I would say, "Well, it's a disease, It's a disease. What are you gonna do?" they're gonna work on the recovery the best they can, but it's a disease, and, I I don't know that I would necessarily, like, suggest the 12 steps to people, but I would, like that was my thought was, like, that was the only way to treat it, and I never even thought to look for other methods of treatment for people, and I did know people even this is the other thing, is, like, looking back, even not immediately when I started the 12 steps, but the one guy that they that I got into the rooms that I was dating, he had somebody in his life that had quit drinking that just, like, gave it up cold turkey. So, like, I knew from there that there were people who quit without the 12 steps, but, like, I still, for some reason, believed that it was the only way, and I don't know why. My biggest issue with the whole 12-step crap is that our government and judicial system is incorporated into everything, and that is one of my big problems with it. I don't know what I could say my biggest problem with it is. I think I think the behavior control, the information control, thought control, and what's the emotional control, the last one. Um, I don't know what I think the worst part about it is, but I do think that it's terrible that our judicial system sends people into this, especially, like, young people who a lot of times it's, like, their first offense. For me, it was, not my first offense, like, I had, like, some traffic, stuff before that. But yeah, few go willingly, exactly, Sandy, and they just sent us into the I keep saying it, but they sent me into the lion's den at 20 years old. I was forced to go, and I had to have my piece of paper signed twice a week that I went to these meetings and I showed up with predators
It's
that they
like the
knew
Wizard
were
of Oz.
predators.
You pulled the curtain and you're like, oh.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And so the same type of thing happened with that relationship. And I knew I was like, I need to end this relationship. I need to get out. Like a month after that, I met Jake on that camping trip. And like we became fast
Yeah.
friends. I rent rooms at my house and I met him. I'm like, you're the perfect person to like live with me. And so he moved into my house. And I would say right around this time, something started to shift within me. And
We
so
didn't get very far into this.
like
It's
you,
40
like I
minutes.
had a lot of fun at first during my time in the rooms, right? Like I went on camping trips, I enjoyed going to conventions, I felt this sense of
Yes, yeah.
community and camaraderie. But what started to happen was that as I really dove into
I'll talk about
working the
that here in a minute.
steps, the shame and guilt language of the steps started permeating my being. And it started off as a low whisper. You worked your 4 steps. So now you have a concrete list of your character defects. So these are things that you can start to
I'll
look at and
shame
start
you.
working on to and then it started building and building into this like sort of quiet roar. So about from
Because the 4th step is basically the beginning of the humiliation rituals. So I did tell my friends that I would get off of here in, like, 9 minutes. So I think I am gonna pause it there and mostly just, kinda talk about it from here. But yes, um, yeah, as as Sandy said, it is a great place to find a dealer if you're looking for a place to score. I will say that pretty much most NA meetings, you will be able to find people selling drugs outside of NA meetings. Um, I will say that was one of the differences, one of the reasons why I would go to the AA meetings instead of the NA meetings because you were less likely to find somebody that was literally going to be selling drugs in the parking lot at AA meetings. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it was less likely. Um, maybe I'll go back to this. This is my quote for the week. I think I'm gonna start doing a quote for the week. If you have any suggestions for additional quotes, feel free to put those in the comments or in the chat. But the effect that you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. I happened to be listening to this speech just for random reasons the other day, and this line really caught me when he said, "The effect that you have on others is the most valuable currency there is." And I think there's something to that. And I think that the 12 steps organizers realize that and they take advantage of that. And you can take advantage of that for good, or you can take advantage of that for evil. But you've got a choice. So, yeah, that's my quote for the week. Sandy says, "All my quotes come from George Carlin." Hey, that's all right. It's a good quote, it's a good quote, right? Or the voices in your head, that's allowed too. We could have a Sandy quote. Generally Specific says, "The wolf hunts the sheep, thus dealer seeks users, former, current/future." Well, thank you for coming. Well, hey, thank you for being an adult, and, I really did enjoy your input. Thank you. Thank you, GS. I appreciate you coming. But yeah, that was you absolutely could score drugs, and it was quite bothersome, actually, to me sometimes, that it was so blatant, and I felt like there was more that could be done. But yeah. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls the butterfly. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I'm saving that one. I think I already have one for next week, but we'll see what comes up first. I like that. Thank you, Sammy. That is a good one. But yeah, again, I will say what I've been saying about this, if you are somebody that like this program is something that really resonates with you, this is the one thing that is keeping you off of drugs and alcohol. Without this in your life, you would be on the streets. Then keep going to meetings, keep showing up, keep working the steps, keep calling your sponsor. I'm not saying that like you should turn away from recovery. I'm just saying that there are other options. And again, I've got links down in the description. I think that this organization hurts people. I think that this organization keeps people from recovering. I think that this organization prevents people from living their lives. And I wish that less people were in it. I I think I tried to sugarcoat it a little bit more last week than I'm really willing to, because the thing about it is this organization hurts people, and I think that people die at the hands of this organization. I really, really do. And I wish people would stop going. But that doesn't mean that I wish that they would stop trying to find a solution to their problems. And that I do want to be very clear about. Sandy says, "It is ironic the deal I worked with her was to attend church until I got off and volunteer at the local thrift shop instead of hanging out with recovering addicts." You know, that's I remember years ago there was somebody who we had like this reunion thing of all the people that we went through inpatient together. Long story. But we went around the room and, like, we all kind of gave updates. We're like, "Oh, this is blah, blah, blah. I'm however many months clean. This is my home group." And there was this woman who said, like, "My church is my home group." And, like, I remember that there was, like, a sort of, like she was, like, snubbed for, like, the rest of the reunion because she said that, like, her church was her home group. And I remember at the time, like, thinking that that was really kind of weird. And now thinking back on it, it is interesting that that's but I do think that some people really do see AA as being, sort of homogenous with their church. I don't know. I think it depends on the group. Oh, it snowed a lot that winter, so you didn't have to go anywhere. That lucky you, lucky you. And it's kinda easy to quit drinking when you don't have access to it, right? Where are you gonna get it if you're snowed in? Thank you, Sammy. I intend to be talking about it more, and I do find I found this channel, like I said, really recently, and I think that it's great what she's doing, talking about it, and I think that we need more and more people talking about it because, um, yeah, it's one of the biggest cult organizations in the US, and I think a lot of people don't recognize it as a cult organization, and a lot of people think that it's something that's helping people, and I disagree. I strongly, strongly disagree. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna call it like 3 minutes early. Thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. This has been a really good conversation, and I appreciate all of your input so much. Thank you all for coming, and I hope that Spackle will be better by next week. If not, we can go over more of this video. Um, but if you're listening, Spackle, I'm sending you healing thoughts. Be well, and hope to see you soon. All right. Good night, everyone.